A powerful response from Ukraine. America is taking Kyiv for a ride. Sometimes they withhold weapons, sometimes they promise the world, and then they toss us a handful. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a pittance. But the question is, isn't it time to rely on ourselves? Ukrainian arms makers are already doing the impossible. Are super bombs and unique technology more important than weapons from America? Let's figure it out. New Ukrainian ballistics. Now it's tearing the occupiers to pieces. It sounds like thunder out of a clear sky right above the Russians' heads. Invisible, precise, merciless. This isn't just a weapon, it's true retribution for the enemy. Ukraine is now destroying the occupiers preemptively. We'll tell you what is known about this dose of fury in just a moment.
At a time when Russian aggression doesn't stop, Ukrainian long-range weapons are becoming not just a symbol of strength, but a real guarantee of security.
The missile program, our missile program, is showing good progress. And although it's a difficult task, gradually we are getting closer to being able to use our own missiles, not just relying on missiles supplied by our partners.
In 2025, there was a breakthrough in the production of Ukrainian missiles. The greatest anticipation was around the production of a domestic ballistic missile. And now it has happened.
I believe the curator was chosen well, and the fact that the program is separated from other programs, that each missile system and missile type has its own curator and its own manager. This is a positive development. As far as I know, in mid-May, tests were conducted that are considered extremely successful. The missile traveled almost 300 kilometers and destroyed a Russian command post. And it is very important that this was a combat use.
A Ukrainian-made ballistic missile traveled almost 300 kilometers and destroyed a Russian command post.
The warhead of this missile weighs over 400 kilograms, and that's a very powerful arsenal. For comparison, the new American ballistic missile's warhead is only 91 kilograms. It's clear that this will be a powerful weapon for us. I hope that we will keep moving forward. The main thing is to scale up quickly and very logically.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly stated that the Ukrainian ballistic missile is already on its way.
He also instructed that separate funding be allocated for our Ukrainian ballistic missile program to speed up missile production.
One version is that the armed forces of Ukraine have likely been attacking enemy targets with ballistic missiles for a year already, since many experts and analysts have, from time to time, been unable to identify the weapon used to destroy enemy targets.
For the first time, the successful results were announced by the president, I think sometime in July or August of last year. And since then, there have been several occasions when strikes on Russia. There is an assumption that Ukrainian ballistic missiles were involved in these strikes on Russia.
A domestically produced ballistic missile is truly a breakthrough for the Ukrainian defense industry.
Ukraine has been developing such projects even before the war began. And some of these projects were already at the stage of being almost ready for, that is, at the prototype level, to be adopted into service. Ukraine absolutely needs to develop its own comprehensive missile program. And in this crucial missile program, which essentially happened in the year 2023, all the various projects that were in a more or less prepared or indeed a ready state were successfully revived. And they were used in order to undertake the development of Ukraine's own ballistic missile.
Some have speculated that this refers to the Ukrainian Sapsan ballistic missile system, which the president of Ukraine mentioned last year.
Nowhere is it stated what missile this is, or its exact specifications. In fact, it's more the internals that have been modernized, not so much the appearance as the internal components. And now all the necessary organizational and management structures have been established to actively move this project forward.
After successful testing, the Ukrainian ballistic missile tactical system is to be produced in series.
The optimal option would be a missile with a range of up to 700 well, around 700 kilometers, and a warhead with a good guidance system that ensures high accuracy with a payload of at least 200 kilograms. of course, if it's more, that's even better.
This would allow us to deliver serious strikes against the entire military-industrial complex of the enemy.
A missile with a range of 300 kilometers and a warhead of 400 kilograms, as stated in the specifications of this missile, will allow us to destroy targets quickly at an operational or tactical operational depth. That's also very good because, well, in fact, all command and control, all military logistics, all depots are located in this zone.
Ukraine has already made attempts to develop a ballistic missile over the past 30 years. At that time, domestic capabilities were limited by the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty.
Everyone remembers that when Oreshnik appeared, we learned about the existence of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. What was it about? It stated that the countries and the parties to this treaty are Russia and the United States, do not engage in the development of intermediate range missiles, and an intermediate range missile refers to ballistic missiles. That means from 500 to 5,500 kilometers. And when Trump, as president, first learned from intelligence that the Russians were developing the RS-26 missile with a range of less than 5,500 kilometers, he broke this treaty, withdrew from this agreement, and then Russia also withdrew from the same treaty.
A country undertakes the obligation to produce missiles with a range of no more than 500 kilometers, but only for domestic use.
If they produce them for export, then the range must not exceed 300 kilometers. So I think that the Ukrainian development of this ballistic missile is currently within the framework of export restrictions, but I am almost certain that its range will be increased to 500 kilometers.
The Ukrainian defense industrial complex is making successful progress in developing weaponry.
I think it will be developed towards a 500-kilometer range. It's possible that the warhead might be slightly reduced, but I think most likely even without reducing the warhead.
The missile program is a strategic security factor for Ukraine. It is a breakthrough and a trump card in the hands of a country defending itself against Putin and his military machine. The development and production of Ukrainian missiles will allow us to independently address the destruction of Russia's military capabilities in its aggressive war against Ukraine.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Ukraine's secret weapon is going on the hunt. The latest surface-to-air missile system is already changing the rules of the game. The Rapid Ranger is already preparing to hunt down the Kremlin's birds, and Moscow knows it. Panic is growing. This isn't just something new, it's a revolution in Ukrainian air defense. What capabilities does this death machine have? We'll reveal all the secrets further in the report. This year, Ukraine and Britain signed a 100-year partnership agreement.
Together, we signed a landmark agreement, the first of its kind, a new partnership between the United Kingdom and Ukraine, which reflects the deep affinity that exists between our two countries.
The partnership agreement between the countries provides for strengthening ties, including in the field of security.
Ukraine and Britain are now closer than ever before. Today we have reached a new level in our relationship, and it is even more than a strategic partnership.
With each passing month, our relations grow stronger and the support increases.
I must put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now, so that they can sit down at the negotiating table. We are doubling our support.
£1.7 billion, which is about $2.2 billion from the United Kingdom, will go toward additional weapons procurement. The funds will be directed towards strengthening air defense. This decision was made by the Cabinet of Ministers. This was announced by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal.
With these funds, we plan to purchase Rapid Ranger air defense systems, as well as lightweight, multi-purpose Martlet missiles. This will significantly strengthen our air defense and our ability to stop the enemy.
The Rapid Ranger anti-aircraft system provides high mobility and rapid response to threats. The target detection range exceeds 15 kilometers, and the effective engagement range is over 7 kilometers. The system can be integrated with any command and control system. A distinctive feature of this module is that it can be mounted on either wheeled or tracked vehicles. The weight of the Rapid Ranger is less than 500 kilograms. The system is equipped with 4 ready-to-fire Martlet missiles, which will also be procured from the UK. The lightweight multi-purpose Martlet missiles weigh about 13 kilograms and have a 3-kilogram warhead. The range of the Martlet missiles is 8 kilometers. The missiles are guided exclusively by a laser beam, as they use a semi-active homing head.
First, it has a low speed. The operator has enough time to aim at the target, and it's not even necessary to track the target the entire time, right? You hold for 3 seconds, the laser system locks onto the target, and then it switches to what is called machine guidance. As it approaches the target, the guidance switches to infrared mode, right? So when it's close to the target, even the heat flow from a piston engine is already significant enough, right? The missile will guide itself. Even if the operator loses the target at some point, the missile will still find its way to the target on its own.
The missile can engage various targets, from lightly armored vehicles to fortifications, drones, as well as both aerial and ground targets.
If a strike is planned, for example, against an armored target using laser guidance during firing, like ground to ground, right? In that case, you can use a missile with a shape charge warhead. If it's against infantry, you can use a missile with a thermobaric or fragmentation warhead. If it's against
a Shahed, for example, right? Got it. So a typical anti-aircraft fragmentation warhead there has specially grooved striking elements.
This assistance is significant because thanks to the help from Britain and the Starstreak air defense systems they provided, which are similar to the Rapid Ranger, the Ukrainian armed forces were already shooting down enemy Mi-8 helicopters back in 2022.
We were able to build a multi-layered defense that includes both short-range systems such as manpads, as well as medium-range surface-to-air missile systems like OZA and Buk, and long-range systems like the S-300. So by effectively combining these sophisticated systems and meticulously building a comprehensive multi-layered air defense, we truly forced the enemy to significantly back off, because they suffered very heavy and substantial losses in the aviation capabilities and subsequently started acting much more cautiously, but at the very same time much less effectively.
In May 2025, Kyiv and London signed a $1 billion arms deal. It was confirmed that the funds would be used to purchase foreign-made defense products and to procure critically important materials, including products made in Ukraine. In June, the United Kingdom announced a record aid package for the supply of drones. We're talking about £350 million, which will allow Ukraine to receive 100,000 drones this year.
We are profoundly grateful to our British partners for their extraordinary and unwavering support, which significantly helps us move ever closer to a just and lasting peace.
Incredible! The main intelligence directorate has revealed a secret weapon that is breaking the enemy's backbone. They strike ships and aircraft deep behind Russian lines. How do they manage to do this? The intelligence service unveiled the latest modifications of water drones, and the world was left in awe. What the Ukrainians have created is already changing the course of the war. All the details are coming up right now in this report.
No one before them has ever done anything like this. For the first time in history, Ukraine shot down a military aircraft with a naval drone. Our main intelligence directorate confirmed the destruction and as proof published this video.
And by the way, this is not the first time enemy aircraft have been destroyed, but previously it was helicopters.
A day later, some details also began to emerge. In particular, the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirill Budanov, clarified in an interview with the War Zone that 3 unmanned Magura V-7 boats took part in the attack, 2 of which fired at the aircraft. At the same time, 2 Russian Su-30 SM attack aircraft were destroyed. One of the crews was killed, while the other managed to eject. The Russians immediately sent a civilian vessel after him, hoping that Ukraine would not violate the rules of war and would not open fire on civilians.
Despite the fact that the Ukrainians had plenty of opportunities to destroy the civilian cargo ship along with the Russian military crew, they did not take advantage of them. They saw how the crew was being evacuated. They circled around the crew members who were floundering in the water. Nevertheless, they did not fire a single shot at either the cargo ship or the crew.
It also seems that the situation regarding which missiles the Ukrainian Maguras were firing has become clearer. In particular, a photo appeared online showing a naval drone equipped with an American AIM-9 air-to-air missile. Earlier versions of the drone were armed with Soviet R-73 missiles.
What makes it unique? Well, really, it's the fact that this is a remote-controlled surface system. Remote control, this is very important. It shot down a manned object. And if we talk about the cost, for example, the Magura, which is around $250,000 to $300,000, and the cost of a Russian Su-30, which is $40 to $50 million, then you can compare or estimate how many times cheaper the means of destruction is compared to the much more expensive target it destroys.
At the same time, analysts point out that the issue here isn't even about the money, although the Kremlin is increasingly having problems with that as well. The main thing is the technology and production capacity, which in Russia have either been lost or are in severe shortage due to Western sanctions.
Every Su-30 SM aircraft is worth its weight in gold. Issue is components, difficult to bring them in circumventing sanctions. Moreover, as far as I know, Su-30 SMS are either not produced at all or in extremely limited numbers.
In addition to the obvious results, the destruction of Russian aircraft from this attack has brought another advantage to the Ukrainian armed forces. The enemy may not be completely demoralized, but they are definitely terrified. Having lost 2 comrades and, most likely, hearing about 2 more unexpectedly fished out of the Black Sea, one can only imagine the mood with which they will now fly missions over the Black Sea area.
The crews of Russian aircraft flying over the Black Sea, who now realize they no longer have any security, yes, even if they don't see us there, even if their targeting radars don't pick up our weapons, that doesn't mean those weapons aren't there. And these types of weapons have actually locked their aircraft in their sights.
By the way, it's not any easier for the pilot's command either. After all, even if the radars detect Ukrainian Maguras, now that won't automatically trigger a clear order for the aircraft to take off, because now the leadership of the Russian Air Force understands it's far from certain that the next pilots will get away unscathed.
Every time the Ukrainians launch an operation in the Black Sea, Russia faces a very tough choice about what to lose. Oil and gas platforms or, say, some other installations in the Black Sea, or, for example, their assets in Crimea, because these unmanned boats can also carry drones. In other words, they're like mini aircraft carriers.
Or maybe they'll have to lose another helicopter or a Su-30 SM.
Sweden has made a move that will shock the Kremlin. Stockholm is going all in and providing Ukraine with weapons worth an unprecedented amount, almost €500 million. The new mega package includes lethal weapons, combat vehicles, ammunition, and advanced defense systems capable of radically changing the situation at the front. The Kremlin is in turmoil, while the Ukrainian armed forces are already preparing to receive the reinforcements in full combat readiness. What kind of power has Ukraine now gained, and what surprises await the enemy? You'll find out all the details in the following report.
To strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities, Sweden has allocated a substantial sum of 4.8 billion Swedish kronor or 443 million euros. The confirmation has already been published on the Swedish government's website. 443 million euros is part of the largest aid package for Ukraine, which was approved by the Swedish parliament on the 29th of April. The total amount of aid from Sweden in 2025 will amount to 1,470 million euros.
These payments will make Ukraine's defense industry and armed forces stronger in defending against Russia.
This is the largest package to date since 2022 from the Scandinavian country.
A significant portion is allocated for the purchase of weapons and for production.
Sweden did this deliberately, stating that it wants to help Ukraine strengthen its position in negotiations to end the war.
We are now at the critical stage of the war. We are focused on providing maximum support to Ukraine so that it can take a strong position during these negotiations. All European countries must increase their support for Ukraine. More needs to be done.
Approximately 92 million euros will be allocated to the Danish model. It promotes the development of Ukraine's defense industry and economy. Unlike the traditional practice where countries supply ready-made weapons from abroad, a significant portion of international military support comes from multilateral coalition initiatives within the Ukraine Defense Contact Group and from purchases from Ukrainian defense enterprises. Sweden will allocate funds to these funds and initiatives. Direct financing of weapons production in Ukraine allows the armed forces to be supplied with the necessary armaments more quickly.
Ukraine is already and will always be one of the most significant European contributors to security. We strive to rely on the best weapons and equipment in the world, both for our own security and for the security of our partners, which is why joint production with Sweden is a priority for us.
The allocated funds will be used to purchase air defense systems, which Ukraine so desperately lacks. Approximately 27 million euros will be directed to the drone coalition. These funds will finance the purchase of various types of unmanned aerial vehicles.
Among other things, we are funding Ukrainian investments in drones and long-range missiles.
Over 38 million euros more will be allocated for the purchase of armored vehicles. Sweden has allocated over 50 million euros for the purchase of ammunition.
We will achieve strength only together, in solidarity, only by working together to make each other stronger.
During the ninth meeting of the Demining Coalition in November 2024, participants discussed Ukraine's needs and agreed on assistance for 2025-2034. Sweden is ready to make the first tranche 9 million euros. The allocated funds will be used to purchase demining equipment such as mine detectors, vehicles and personal protective equipment.
The coalitions that have been established are very important because they focus not only on Ukraine's current needs, but also on future ones, which are meant to ensure the interoperability of the Ukrainian military with the armed forces of NATO member states.
Thanks to the agreements, the Maritime Security Coalition will receive approximately 4 million euros. The funding will help train the personnel of the Ukrainian Navy. The Security and Management Systems Coalition will use the more than 2 million euros allocated to it to purchase equipment for the creation of the Ukrainian management system, Delta. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Sweden has provided 17 aid packages with weapons totaling 4.2 billion euros, and for 2025 and 2027, a total military support of 6.5 billion euros is planned.
A turning point at the front is inevitable. President Zelensky has signed a sensational decree that launches a new era in the armament of the Ukrainian armed forces. This weapon is capable of striking so hard that Putin and his entire army will be in serious trouble. A blow that will break the occupiers' back. The countdown has begun. What are these extraordinary capabilities and when will they be able to show their full potential? We'll tell you more in the following report. Ukraine is one of the few countries that, while fighting for its independence, continues to adhere to international norms. But war changes everything. Kyiv is officially withdrawing from the 1997 Ottawa Convention, which prohibits the use, stockpiling and production of anti-personnel mines. The corresponding decree was signed by President Volodymyr Zelensky, thereby enacting the decision of the National Security and Defense Council. This step is driven by the need to protect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine amid ongoing aggression from Russia.
That's all.
Volodymyr Zelensky. The signature style of Russian killers is to destroy life by any means at their disposal. Both chemical weapons and ballistic missiles, including medium-range missiles. Also various types of mines, including anti-personnel mine. Unfortunately, yes, of course, we see how our neighbors in Europe are responding to this threat. We are also aware of the difficulties involved in the withdrawal procedure, especially when it is carried out during wartime. We are taking this political step and thus sending a signal to all our partners about what to focus on. This concerns all countries along the perimeter of Russia's borders. it is precisely anti-personnel mines that are often the only tool available for defense.
Narrator: Ukraine joined the Ottawa Convention in 2005, hoping that global disarmament would ensure peace. But as early as 2014, Russia began using mines as a tool of occupation. Since 2022, this has been happening on a massive scale and with particular brutality. According to the main directorate for mine action, as of November last year, 1,068 people in Ukraine have been affected by mines and unexploded ordnance. Among them are children.
Man 1. Taking into account the absolute priority of defending our state from brutal Russian aggression, our land from occupation, and our people from horrific Russian atrocities, Ukraine has made a difficult but necessary political decision to suspend the fulfillment of irrelevant obligations under the Ottawa Convention. We are convinced that this step is necessary and appropriate to the level of threats, as it concerns the survival and preservation of Ukraine as a sovereign, independent, and free state, according to the Telegram channel of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine.
Andriy Yermolenko, Ukraine has long been using anti-personnel mines and anti-tank mines. From the very first days of the war, and even before that, we mined our coastline, we mined the sea, the waters, we mined roads and bridges. In other words, Ukraine has used mines before. Yes, there are certain obligations imposed on Ukraine under the Ottawa Convention regarding the non-use, non-production, non-stockpiling, and non-transfer of anti-personnel mines, because they are considered indiscriminate weapons. A lot of people suffer from them. This may give us, in the near future, the opportunity to purchase mines from third countries, those that have also withdrawn from the convention, or perhaps never signed it or withdrew earlier, and to bring them into Ukraine without violating any international agreements. And likewise, to start production on Ukrainian territory.
Narrator: Ukraine is not alone. NATO countries have already withdrawn or are preparing to withdraw from the Ottawa Convention, primarily those bordering the terrorist state. Among them are Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland.
Man 1. This decision was not made lightly. Lithuania has no illusions. Putin's Russia is the greatest long-term existential threat to Europe. It wages war to achieve political goals, undermines stability through sabotage, and is preparing for a prolonged confrontation. The reality in the end is this: our neighbor is an aggressive imperialist state called Russia, which is not a party to the Ottawa Treaty and ruthlessly uses anti-personnel mines.
Announcer: in this way, the defense forces will be able to choose the weapons, systems, means, and methods necessary to strengthen the state's defense capability.
Anatoly Novikov: exiting the convention is already an action. It goes beyond concepts, assumptions, and plans. In fact, these countries are now building fortifications on their borders. These countries are openly showing that for them the main threat is the Russian Federation. And therefore, this precisely indicates that the Russian threat in Europe is finally being perceived not just seriously, but as one of the most significant threats to the continent's existence, and they are acting accordingly.
Announcer: Ukraine's official withdrawal from the Ottawa Convention will take effect in 6 months. Ukraine is taking this step not by choice, but out of necessity. And it's important to understand here, this is not a step toward escalation. It's not a rejection of humanity. It's not a choice for war. It's a choice for the right to self-defense.
Darina Hutskalo. That's all from me. This was Darina Hutskalo with you. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you next time.